On today's hot sheet, I'm discussing October home price indices from S&P, Case-Shiller, as well as FHFA, and the pending home sale report for November. A lot of data on housing. Today is Tuesday, December 30, 2025. I am Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. Good morning, live from Naples, Florida. Pleasure to be with you wherever you are tuning in from here live on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Ton of great content coming out in 26. If you're listening to this on the replay on Apple or Spotify, appreciate you, and it's a pleasure to be with you whenever you're tuning in. Love for you to consider leaving a review on either of those two platforms. And again, pleasure to be with you and with some of you, again, who came from the BAMX Roleplay Mastermind. We do the BAMX Roleplay Masterminds every single Tuesday, mostly every single Tuesday of the year at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, right before we jump into the hot sheet. You can find these in your calendar on School BAMX members and add that right to your calendar with one click of the button. Next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern is the next one. Go to school.com/BAMX. Open up a free trial here to end the year for school for BAMX, so you can jump in and try that out next week if you want to get ahead of your competition for the year and convert on more conversations. We mastermind on that every single Tuesday, and it's awesome to see a bunch of you guys. All right. S&P Dow Jones indices. So the S&P Cotality Case-Shiller index. This is like, I mean, the name on this report has gotten so long. It's like it's like some of the cigars that I smoke. It's like, oh, it's a it's a Habano wrap made by Foundation. The name of the cigar is the Olmec, and it's from this origin. The name has just gotten so long that it's kind of crazy. But it's the the Case-Shiller index has historically been the gold standard on pricing. So we've got a good feel at this time of year what prices did in 2025. This data is lagging. It's October. So in 2 months, we'll have the full picture according to Case-Shiller. By then we're all going to know what our markets, the micro markets, how they performed. And we already have a good barometer with real-time data from, places like realtor.com and the like. Okay. So what did the gold standard though say? We're interested obviously in that as they closed out their October report, and they had U.S. National Home Price Index at a 1.4% annual gain in October. So again, consistent with a lot of the real-time data that, on the, entirety of the macro market, the overall market is not in negatives. We have a lot of metros that are, or we have a number of metros that are. I don't want to sound like a doomer and use words like lot or all or crash or, oh my God, 2008. None of that is close to the reality of which we're living. 1.4% annual gain is up from a 1.3% the previous month. If we're going to get real with it, that is, basically net negative on home prices when you factor in inflation. Okay. So you'd want home prices to be in line or above inflation. We know inflation is on the last CPI report, in the mid to high twos. And, we're certainly below that. And so, factoring in inflation, you could call that a net negative. But on real numbers, 1.4%. Is the gain there. So regional differences. Chicago continues to, obviously be a big gainer, as does New York. Not as much as they were a year ago in terms of year-over-year growth from 23 to 24, but from 24 to 25, still, very substantial gains, 5.8 and 5% respectively. And then you've got Sunbelt cities that are, doing quite the opposite. Tampa, we've seen this now month over month, really consistently since the big storms of now, call it a year, almost a half ago, a year and 3-4 months, something like that in Tampa, 4.2% to the negative. Phoenix, 1.5% down there. Okay, 16 of 20 markets declined month over month in October. So they do the 20 market city composite on this S&P number, and they do the 10 city as well. We'll just take a look here at the 20 city. Gives us a bigger picture. The 1 year change, you could see seasonally September to October change. All 20 cities except for Phoenix, interestingly, because Phoenix is a year over year negative, except for Phoenix, except for Miami, except for San Francisco, except for those three. When you go month over month, this is seasonally expected. So this isn't like a sign of the world coming to an end. This is seasonally expected. You have a September to October change to the negatives. Chicago flat. So looks like 4 of the 20 were either flat or slightly up. The others were down. Month over month, the 10 city composite and the 20 city composite both down. If we look at the 1 year change, Atlanta breaks through to the negative on the 1 year change. Call it flat, but it's negative 0.12%. Dallas is down 1.5% on the 1 year change. Denver down 1.3+% on the 1 year change. Vegas down almost 0.7%, 0.67. Miami down over 1% on the 1 year change. We saw yesterday Miami had the most volume moved, sold. So, pretty good to have, that level of sales in Miami, and with the only dipping 1% on sale price. A lot of sellers did pretty well in Miami. Phoenix down 1.5% and Portland down 0.62% year over year numbers. San Diego down 0.6%, Seattle down 0.4%, and Tampa's the big wrong leader, the leader you don't want to be in the clubhouse as it comes to sales prices, down up over 4%. The 10 cities up almost 2% on the year, 1.9% plus. The 20 cities 1.3% plus, more similar to what the national number is here at the 1.4% on the round up. Okay, so there's your Case-Shiller data from October, and as it sits year over year from that time frame. Moving over to the FHFA house price index, comes out the same day as Case-Shiller. They're side by side. There are sometimes a little bit of differences, but this data on this house price index from FHFA is through October 2025. So this is your government dose of housing data here for the month through October. FHFA price house index puts a 0.4% increase in October and a 1.7% bump up on home prices year over year. Okay, the previously reported 0% price change in September was revised actually down to a 0.1% decline. So that these numbers get revised time to time, and 1.7%, and again in line with a lot of the real time data. Under 2% on home price growth here for the year. So 1.7% as the year is closing up. You look at history. I love the FHFA historical outlook. Where do I think home prices are going to go? The buyer's dad asked the question, hey, where are home prices going? I don't know. You've been alive this entire time. Where do you think they're going? Probably with a little bit more of a professional tone than that. But where do you think? Up and to the right. That's where home prices are going since 1991. That's where they've gone. Outside of the detour in the 2008 time frame. Here's your 12-month house price changes per region in comparison to the previous 12 months. So the October 2023 to October 2024 time frame. All of those time frames are, substantially higher than what we've seen the last 12 months, October 24 through October 25. In the U.S., during the 12-month span from 23 to 24, you saw nearly 5%. Now we're down to 1.7. The Pacific region, 2.5% versus a 0.2%. Mountain region, 3.5% increase versus a 0.3%. West, North, Central is fairly close, given some of these other regions, 5.1%, 23 to 24 versus 3.8 over the last 12 months. West, South, Central, 2.6% to a negative 0.7. So big swing there. East, North, Central, 6.8% versus 5.1. So maintaining healthy sales price gains there. East, South, Central, 5.6 versus 1.5. New England, 6.6% versus 3.7. Continuing healthy gains there. Mid-Atlantic, 7.1% versus a 5.3% gain now. Very strong. South Atlantic, 4% versus a negative 0.5% decline. Okay. So there's your FHFA report here to the last report of 2025, but doesn't close out 2025. Still 2 reports to go on the FHFA numbers before we get the entire FHFA look on the year. NAR came out to, I think this was today or yesterday, on pending home sale data. So this is now through November on pending home sales. The U.S. index comes in for pending home sales at a 79.2. Good news, that's a month-over-month increase of 3.3%. Now, a normal higher level activity, a market that, has fluidity to it would be 100 on this index. Think 2001. 2001 is before the crazy mortgage crisis run up. This is an index above 100 coincides with higher level of activity relative to 2000. We're not even at 2001 levels. We're at 79.2. And so 3.3% increase over the past month is a positive signal. Lawrence Yun, chief economist, says homebuyer momentum is building. Now, we have seen that in the last couple of months with pending home sales. It's, tick higher than what we saw. We're getting momentum here, to close out the year a little bit on rates. Maybe that'll show up as an earlier spring. The economist from NAR and the team there says the data shows the strongest performance of the year. So this is the best, pending home sale data of the year. And, accounting for seasonal factors, it's the best performance in nearly 3 years, dating back to February 2023. So interesting there that pending home sales performing maybe a little bit above expectations. South still relatively strong, even though it feels for sellers in the South, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, like things aren't happening. That's just because of so much inventory, but sales are happening there. 94.7% on the index, pretty close to that 2001 level of 100, up 2.4% month over month. So improving in a seasonal time of year that you could see those numbers, expect those numbers to move down. Next up is the Midwest at 78.7 month over month, up 1.3%. The Northeast at 68.4, but up 1.8% month over month. And then the West, this might be the greatest signal of all if you want to get excited about something going into next year. The West has a rather pathetic number on sales on a scale of 100 at 63.8, but month over month, a 9.2% pop on pending home sales. Is that an indication that people are going to transact at a higher level going into the new year? Not necessarily, but it's it's a good sign. We've had a 2.6% increase year over year on pending home sales. We've gained in all 4 regions year over year. And those are good signs heading into next year. Remember, last year, Where'd we start? Last year, if we go, 1 year out on 30-year mortgage rates, January 13th, which is what, 15 days from today? January 13th, we topped out at 7.26%. And we ended the day yesterday under that, 6.19. Back in the teenage digits after that 6. I like it. 6.19 was where we ended the year. So a full 1% higher than where we were 15 days forward from today. And, we kind of hung out, for the majority of the spring market. I mean, you think about April 11th, we were up over 7%. May 21st, we were up over 7%. I mean, we had a kind of a rough start in terms of rates to the spring market last year. We hang out where we're at right now. These pending home sale numbers should flow into this spring. It should be a stronger spring. I think some of the Realtor.com projections are pretty conservative. They nailed them this year, so I put a lot of weight in them. You can go listen to a Knowledge Brokers podcast that we did a few weeks ago with Danielle Hale, the chief economist, on where she reviewed the entire projection for 2026. They update that mid-year. We'll have her back on then. But if you missed this one, go check it out on Knowledge Brokers pod. But she is calling for an increase, and the Realtor.com team is calling for an increase on total sales, existing home sales. They are calling for an average on the 30-year fixed that's below this year's average. And we are seeing pending home sales. Lawrence Yun, NAR, says, hey, best we've seen in a couple of years now. And we are seeing that momentum. So we could stack up to see maybe even a better than expected. Danielle says, I hope I'm wrong on some of these conservative numbers, even though they're slightly better than 25. Maybe she'll be off to the advantage of a healthier market. Love to see that. Love Danielle, but I'd love to see her being off. She would too. Okay. Here's your regional numbers year over year on these pending home sales. So Northeast, despite the suffering of inventory in the Northeast, still a 1.8% increase year over year. These aren't market changing, and not gonna be life changing for anybody's business if the business only rides market momentum, which I would advise against riding market momentum. But it's showing signals of some improvement, okay, in terms of transaction count. The Midwest had a 2% plus 2.2% year over year increase in the Midwest. The South had a 3.3% increase year over year. For all the sellers who are dealing with the inventory, the competitive nature with the high inventory in the South, nothing is selling. Really? 3.3% more sales than a year ago. Maybe it's price. Maybe it's your exposure plan to the market that's not working. Maybe you need to be with an agent who's part of the BAM community. The West, 2.4% increase year over year. And then that 9.2% pop month over month. Really good sign there for the Western region. Okay, there's your pending home sale. I like the data. I'm pleased with it. I'm also relatively pleased with where this number has been the last 24 or 48 hours. It's the 10-year Treasury. A little bit of a tick up here today, but kind of look at the last 5 days. We're not at the lows of yesterday, but we're not at the highs of 5 days ago either. Look at the 1 month. Again, not at the highs, not at the lows. Same thing with the 3 month, closer to the higher end of the range for the 3 month outlook. 4.136, where we're starting the day. Again, ended the day yesterday on the 30-year fixed mortgage rate at 6.19. Low sixes, January, February, I think would be, very different than last year. And I think it would welcome in more people into this spring shopping season as we kind of gear up and collect data for that. All right. There's your hot sheet for today. Again, if you want to join us, if you missed today's role play mastermind, we do that every Tuesday, 9 a.m. before the hot sheet. And you get access to all of the scripts, and you get access to all the replays if you are in BAMX. It's all in the role play mastermind. I give you a sneak peek of it anyway. It's all in here's the classrooms for BAMX. So it's all in the role play replay script. Today's will go up here shortly. All of the replays, as well as the scripts and resources available for you. If you want to be a part of that live session or just get access to the replays, then join us in BAMX, school.com/BAMX, link down below. All right, there's your hot sheet here for today. Pleasure to be with you guys, and I'll be back with you tomorrow. Until then, toodaloo.